What have we got from the groups? We start with this wonderful group here. What have you got? Fear. Embarrassment. Resonating there. The larger group here, we expect a lot of ideas, a lot of brain power over there. Ooh, not knowing the answers. Interesting. That's one. Come on, there's quite a lot of brains over there. What else is going on? Reserve, obviously, because we're very obviously gentrified in that corner. What else have we got going on? Anything else? Sorry, I've got a book. Sorry. Apologies. Could we have the excellent group here? I see there's not a lot of wealth of knowledge here. Someone's happy. What was the question? I've judged them completely, Dom, and I will do my repentance later. Oh, was it? Oh gosh. It was my sharpening. So, judgment. The 18. Language. Culture. Shame. Belief, yeah. Oh, you mean like different belief, yeah? Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Great. Wonderful. There's anything else? Yeah, sure.
Thinking that your own personal story is not dramatic.
Yeah. You've not been drug dealing enough, Jackie, shipping it in and then. Yeah, no, it's interesting. So lack of value of own story, I guess. Yeah. Really cool. Yeah, it's big though, isn't it? Yeah. So what do we go here and come back to the wonderful group in the centre? We've got here. Anything different? It doesn't matter if there's nothing different, by the way. That's fine.
One of them was not knowing what to say and not feeling you've got the knowledge to know what to say. And another one that we mentioned was maybe being too caught up in our own lives and in our own business.
So almost like tunnel vision.
So we're focused on us rather than people out there showing what we have.
Yeah, definitely. And Tony and Emma?
So, well, maybe it's coming, but
that's fine.
The stereotype that goes with being on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Step into that.
Yeah, that's kind of eternal burden, sir.
Cultural, so Tony felt it's easy to share. Completely separate different cultures.
Yeah, it's interesting, that, isn't it? And Jesus had something to say about it as well, didn't he? The evangelism, it wasn't the evangelist, but the recognition of the apostle in his own people. Yeah. I'm very, very poorly. You're right, sorry, just turn me up a bit. Of course, that's a dangerous thing, isn't it? Maybe turn me off. Okay, so that's where we start, isn't it, Lydia? That's where we start. So can we just go to the next slide, please, Katie? Is that all right? So, obviously, you've got everything on our list, which is great. So we're going to talk about it now a little bit. But as we start this, I just encourage you to think as we have this talk, what is it you'd like to be different for you at the end of this conversation? And I just encourage you, what's the one thing that maybe you'd like to be different? Maybe it's a bit less fear, maybe it's some tools, maybe it's just something to do or try. But just have a think about it. And as you think about that, have a think about how you'll know this has been a useful thing to do. What will make this useful for you? Will it be something to take away? Or will it just be knowing that kind of there's other people who maybe have similar sort of challenges? I don't know. But it's quite often useful to think about that when we kind of go into a learning-ish sort of space, because otherwise there's this great danger, isn't it? We sit and watch these lovely PowerPoint slides, which are very amusing, obviously, not as good as the TV, and we come away and go, what on earth happened? But I just encourage you to think, what's the one thing that you'd like to be different at the end of this conversation? You don't have to tell anyone, but just hold it for yourself, yeah? And we're going to talk about a few things. So the first thing we're going to talk about is not having a heart for the lost. Now, did you want to say something about it?
Yeah.
Did you want to come over?
This is so high up. Not having a heart for the lost, it like ties into not giving up on anybody else and not giving up on yourself. And last year there was a summer show at my school, and there was somebody in sixth form who did this show, and I'm not going to do it justice, but it basically went a bit like like this. It was like on the first birthday, the boy got given gifts. He didn't know what they are. He screamed. He ran upstairs. Second birthday, okay, got gifts. Right, but there's a cake. There's fire on the cake. There's fire. Run up to a room. Okay, right. Third birthday, got the presents, got the cakes. Why are there people in my house? Why are there people in my house? Okay, fourth birthday, you've got the presents, got the cake, got the guests, but there was nobody because they'd given up. And that was not as good as they would have done it. It was a lot better when they did it. But it's like showing like just when people have got it, then you give up on them, and like you don't know how close they are to seeing God, so you can't like give up on them.
Thanks, Lydia. That's great. And by the way, my beautiful image, obviously I've worked really hard on this images, is a Newton's cradle that's in a bit of a mess. Has anyone seen these? There's the balls that sort of knock into each other, and then the one comes off the end. And what I was trying to illustrate beautifully was this idea that the person is complete. They're just sometimes in a bit of a tangle. Because I think sometimes we have this idea that they're less than. Actually, they're complete, but we just sometimes need some help. And I'm not saying it comes from the individual, it comes from God, but to untangle stuff. And that's where that sort of idea comes from. Not a perfect illustration, but hopefully one that resonates. So go to the next slide, please, Casey. And this kind of builds into this idea of persistence. So not giving up on yourself and other people. Did you want to say anything more about that, Lydia? Or you? That's fine. That's fine. So I was just really struck as Lydia was sort of sharing there. So often, I think in this space, we give up on ourselves and we give up on other people sometimes, especially when things don't happen. Yeah. I guess we've all got stories of people in our lives that maybe we've prayed for and hoped for and wished for and craved for them to come and know Christ. And sometimes in God's time, it just takes a long time because they're not ready. And we'll talk a bit more about some of the other things that go on. But I just encourage you to think about this idea that actually it's so important to keep going because we don't know God's purposes. We don't know what he's got in mind. I'm speaking from a different place. So I've worked in sales quite a lot. And has anyone else here worked in sales? Yeah. So why do most salespeople fail? Have a guess. They give up. They give up, absolutely. They don't make the last call. They don't bother to get in contact. I'm not talking about the hard, pushy sales on your doorstep. They don't bother to just check in. Tony, how you doing? We talked about this 3 months ago. Is this still of interest? Oh, yes, actually, but I'm glad you phoned. You know, that sort of conversation doesn't happen. That's why. And I think the same thing is, I'm not saying this is sales, but it's that whole thing about, are we prepared to stay with it? And as we talk about that, I just want to show you a short video. All right, okay, so some of you may have seen this before. This absolutely brings tears to my eyes, so just a tearjerker alert. I'm doing the lights out, thanks, Roz. We will show it. Okay, so for those who don't know, that individual is called Derek Redmond. What you probably don't know about Derek is that was Barcelona. In Seoul 4 years before, he did not start because he had a similar injury that took him out. That was the last time he ran for Great Britain. But it wasn't the last time he played for Great Britain because he played basketball for Great Britain. But what was so important for me in this story, in what we saw there was, I mean, Derek describes it in his own words, you know, in terms of he ran the first part of the race, everything was good. And by the way, he had won his previous heats in record time. He was the favourite for this event. And he pulled up with 200 metres into a 400 metres race with and I don't know which bit of the body it is. Hamstring, exactly, yeah. I don't know why that's escaped me anyway. And Derek didn't realise 65,000 people were cheering him on. Derek didn't even realise, and in case you hadn't worked out, that bloke was his dad. And his dad's words were, we started this together, we finished this together. Because it wasn't about winning the race, it was about completing the race. And I just think that is so... It feels a bit rude in some ways to take Derek's story, but what we saw with Derek just feels so much like what God is to us so often. The goal was to finish. You didn't have to come first. You had to trust me and finish. And all those people that were talking to Derek as we were going on, they were all the doctors and medical staff who absolutely had Derek's best interests at heart. But sometimes it's not the body that needs sorting, it's the mind. And the mind was about, I needed to cross that line because I did not finish against my Barcelona Olympics. It didn't matter, I didn't come in the top 3 or in with the rest of the race. That really struck for me, actually, the role we play. And the role God plays in terms of just being there on the sidelines, ready to jump off and to bat away all those people that would say, just stop now, you're done. You're done, because actually your race is not finished. Did you want to say that, Liz?
So that shows how persistence is so important, because if he hadn't kept on going, then he would have just not finished, and that would have been so much worse. And I wanted to say about something that somebody said in a talk at New Wine, the camp we go to in the summer, where they were like, persistence is a bit like tunneling through a mountain. You're tunneling through a mountain and you're almost there, and then you turn back. How awful would that be? And that's like turning back and not persisting when it feels really hard. I was going to talk about God. He's there cheering us on, and he's looking at us from above. He's making sure that everything's going to plan, but he's also with us, next to us, cheering us on.
Now, would you like to talk about this one before I submit?
Yeah. So this is from How to Train Dragon. Yep.
Who's read the book?
Yep. And this is the endeavour. Endeavour meaning to keep on going, even when you think it's failed. And it's it was also the second best sword, but it was the favourite sword, which is the important thing, because it shows that things are used in surprising ways. This wasn't the best sword, the other guy had the best sword, wasn't it? Alvin. Somebody else had the best sword. But he had the second best sword, but he still won. And so it's showing the best is not always the most obvious.
Right. It was interesting because that sort of plays into some of the things we had up here. So that story is about ridicule, it's about fear, it's about embarrassment of Hiccup, as he has Grimbeard's second best sword. By the way, you need to read the book to get all the context, but it gives you an idea that sometimes the gifts that God gives us, we don't know the purposes for them until we're in the right place. So next slide, please, Casey. Other stuff that comes up, which we touched on, is fear. Fear. And I break fear down to talk about, I think there's some fear of people and how they might hear what's going on. And also sometimes fear of God, I think. I don't know if that's true for anyone else here. But sometimes we're a bit fearful about, actually, what does God expect for us? How does he want to turn up? So actually being aware of that is really, really important. Go to the next slide, please, Casey. Do you want to say this?
So I thought this verse, Proverbs 19:21, many are the plans of a person's heart, but the Lord's purpose, it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. This kind of sums up what we need to be doing in evangelism, because whatever we may try to do, if we don't do it with God, it's not going to work. And so we need to walk with God as we talk to people and let him take the driver's seat.
Go to the next slide, please, Casey. And there's also another component, because guess what? Look around you. If you notice something, you are not alone. It's not me, Lydia, and you in this space. Has anyone noticed some other people here? We are part of the body of Christ, yeah? And the evidence suggests that most people, when they come to know Jesus, don't just meet one person. They meet lots of people. They meet a family, they meet a body. And actually, that is what helps them see what Christ is like, because they see his presence in different people. So we just really want to emphasize it's a team sport, this evangelism malarkey. And what I mean is, and not in an overtly cringy, horrible way, but in a relational way that says, actually, these are the people of Christ. We are a people. And actually, there's a danger, I think, sometimes we think we've got to take this all on ourselves, when in fact, we work together as a group, and we love people as a group, and we behave as a group. Go next slide, please. That's it. Do you want to talk back on that?
So it's also the fear of failure sometimes will stop us when we're trying to spread the word of God. And so it's important to remember, even if you do fail, yes, you sometimes will fail. Like, not everybody wants to hear that. But it's important to remember that sometimes you do need to lose a battle to win the war. Yeah.
Next slide, please, Casey. And sometimes your failures look like this. That's my porridge. It was slightly messy. But who's ever felt like that about things that have happened? Yeah? By the way, that was using the exact same recipe I use every morning. The exact same microwave settings. And that happened. Not fun, no? But I think sometimes that really feels heavy, doesn't it? When we think we're doing the same things, the right things, the things that are useful, and explosions like that happen. Now, interestingly, in this particular situation, I did manage to scrape back into a bowl and have a nice breakfast. But it comes back to this idea, I think, that there's this perfectionism that holds over us. I don't know if anyone else feels this, that there's a right way or a proper way or a way that things need to be done. I believe firmly that God has made us all unique, all part of his body, to do what his purpose is through us because of whose he's made us, not to turn us into someone else. And it's so, so important that we hang on to that. Next slide, please, Casey. Now, it's obviously a bit of a stretch, this one, but we'll go for it. Where I'm leading with this is, who can guess the location? Any points for the location? Apart from people that were there, obviously. No, close to home. Is it Trinity? Where is it, babe? No, not quite. It's near King's, obviously it's on the road, I think. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Great St Mary's. So we've got some wonderful Morris dancers here. Now, what I'm trying to illustrate here is not that you ought to be to become Morris dancers. We're pleased to know. We breathe a sigh of relief now. But what I'm trying to say is actually, it's important, I think, that we look like what we talk about. Yeah? And so where I'm going with them, let me just sure I've got the words right here, that we have a distinctive lifestyle that represents what we believe. I'm not saying it needs to be perfect, but there's a fragrance of this God that we follow in our lives. Because it stands out rather like these Morris dancers. It was very clear they were Morris dancers. And if I was interested in Morris dancing, I'd know where to go because I can see some Morris dancing going on. But I think the same is true with Christianity. It's infectious stuff when we live it. And I think we all do live it a little bit, but sometimes we need to turn the temperature up a little bit. And that doesn't mean you need to become extreme, just a little switch on the knob. Anyway, next slide, please, Casey. Did you want to talk about time at all? So the other thing I was just going to touch on, I think is a really important barrier, is making time. Now, I know the guys that came last week obviously commit a huge amount of time to giving out Bibles. For those of you that weren't here, some wonderful couple came that talks about giving out Bibles right, left and centre. It's absolutely brilliant, but they make time to do that. Now, I'm not suggesting we always have to make huge amounts of time, but I do think that sometimes we need to be quite intentional and actually think, what am I going to do with this time? Because if we create time, the other benefit is we can hear what God's got going on. Because who here is often very, very busy? Yeah? Who here is so busy that they sometimes don't notice really obvious stuff? And I really believe that God talks to all of us all the time, yeah? But sometimes we're just a bit busy to hear what's going on, yeah? So actually creating time to hear what God's doing, sometimes in us, and sometimes in other people, is a good thing, because this whole thing about evangelism is that it's about following up on stuff that God is already doing generally, I would argue. God is already doing things in people's lives. The question is, do we want to partner with him and walk with him as he does that stuff? And that brings us on to our final slide. Can anyone guess the football game? Elijah, you were there, weren't you? Anyone apart from Elijah? Go on, Elijah, what was it? Was it England, Netherlands? I think so, yeah. I can't remember it myself.
It says it on there.
Oh, sorry, yes, it was England, Netherlands, exactly right, Elijah. So, can you guess the location, Elijah?
Yeah.
It's your school, new school. This is your new school, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So this was to give you some context. Why am I putting this picture up? Because actually there is also something that should never be overlooked in this whole thing. And that is the fact that this is about relationships and community. So we were at Lydia's show, wasn't it? Was it your summer showcase? Something I can't remember. And there was this big football game going on that we were all like a bit itchy about missing. And in the interval, we went outside and there was literally, it must have been like 30, 40 people there with this kind of laptop held up with the game, and we're all crowding round it. And it was, I cut all the pictures and faces out. I didn't think it was fair to sort of feature people. I don't know. But it just really struck me, this idea of a community coming together because of something we care about. Now, football is quite fun. Ultimately, it's not going to do probably too much in terms of eternity, but the idea that actually coming together and just being in community together is so important, because conversations and relationships really, really matter. And they are so often born out of the simplest of things. Again, the football. Does anyone want to add to that? No? Okay. So, as we come into the end here, I want you to think about something. We talked about loads of stuff, yeah? There's loads of stuff here. So first of all, I'd ask you just to think about the one thing that's getting to you. The other thing I'd ask you to think about is this, and this is going to be practical. So I want you to take an imaginary marker pen, or maybe a spray can, if you want to. Don't know how funky you're feeling. And I want you to draw a circle around yourself. Can you do that? I can see you if you're not playing, by the way. Spray a circle around yourself. Now you imagine yourself. Now what colour is your circle? Anna, what colour is your circle? Yellow. Tony? Red. Red. Nigel, what colour is your circle?
Orange.
Orange. Carl, you've walked out your circle. What colour is your circle? So that circle, yeah, you're standing, yeah? The thing inside that circle is the only thing you can modify, yeah? And by the way, how many people are inside the circle? You sure? Two. What's the other one? Jesus, Holy Spirit. Yes, Sandra. Yes. Great attention. There's two people in that circle, yeah? Who want to play together nicely, yeah? But that's the only thing that can change what's inside that circle. And what I'm trying to say is that so often I think we think there's lots of extra external things but so often Christ calls us just to one little thing that we can change to help us with this, if that's useful. That's what God's calling us to. So I just encourage you to think about, if there's anything today that's resonated with you, what is the one thing that you maybe like to be different? Coming back to that knowing, is this useful at the end? So as we finish here, we've got about 5 minutes left. I just offer you an opportunity to pray or to chat together about what struck you about that. And it might be the fact the speaker was awful, and that's okay, but it might be something more fundamental, yeah, that God's talking to you about. And if you want to, I'd encourage you to be accountable as you need to be about something that maybe needs to be different, yeah. So bless you.